Hi everyone, my name is Ezra Cipes. I am the second generation at Summerhill Pyramid Winery, and I am here on a absolutely glorious early December day overlooking Okanagan Lake at Summerhill Vineyard. And I'm here to share with you some insights about autolysis in traditional method sparkling wine, what it is, how it develops, and how we perceive it. And we're going to talk about it through tasting three different wines that have been aged with the yeast inside the bottle for different amounts of time. And that's what autolysis is. It's an expression of that aging on the lee, on the yeast. This is traditional method sparkling wine, so it's made by making a table wine, or a still wine rather, and then bottling it with more yeast and more sugar inside the bottle, putting a cap on the bottle and aging it, and a second fermentation happening inside the bottle. Carbon dioxide is a product of fermentation that creates the bubbles, and then the dead yeast, once they've eaten all the sugar, they've digested all the nutrients they can, they expire, and the wine ages with the dead yeast cells inside the bottle. And that creates something called autolytic enzymes, which we experience in traditional sparkling wine as like a rich baked goods character, which is really beautiful. And that's why we spend extra money on these kind of wine rather than just drinking a simpler sparkling wine like Prosecco. So we're going to start with Cipes Brut. This was aged for about 18 months on the lee. And this is made with Riesling, Pinot Blanc, and Chardonnay, so it's a more aromatic and fruity wine in general. And that's the first thing you smell. The first thing you smell is really fruit. I mean, I get green apples and citrus right off the top. But there's something else that's a little richer than you would taste in just like an aromatic or a light wine. But in this case, it's in the background. And the palate really follows the nose. It's an incredibly appealing wine. This is, my friend Rome calls this the wine that launched 1,000 ships. It's just something that you know everyone is going to love. It's going to win every time. So that is Cipes Brut, and really on the palate, it's fruit. The bubbles are nice and fine. They're not gassy. You know, it's lovely. What can you say? Then we go on to the Blanc de Blanc. This is from 2012, and so this was on the yeast, on the lees for quite a few years, quite different from 18 months. This is 6-7 years at this point. So now on the nose, it's actually the very first thing you smell. It smells like, right now, what I think of, maybe it's just because the holidays are coming, but it smells like shortbread to me right away. You get that really biscuity baked goods character on the nose. And if there's fruit there, now it's in the background. There's definitely some brightness and some citrus, maybe almost a little like peach kind of character, which is really lovely, but it's subtle. It's ode to peach, you know, just. And the whole expression of the wine is creamier. The bubbles, the whole texture of it is creamier. The bubbles are still fine. They're still not gassy, but now they're more integrated in the wine in a way where it's like the whole thing has a texture, where the carbon dioxide and the wine, like you don't know where one ends and the other one begins. There's a creaminess to it, and you taste a little more of the fruit. Now you get that malic acid, the appley character of the Chardonnay, and certainly the citrus, definitely on the finish. It ends with quite a bit of nice, bright, fresh fruit, which is lovely. But the autolysis leads now. That's what you get for extra aging. Why you buy traditional method sparkling wine that's older, so you really experience that autolysis. And that's a really great example of it, where the wine itself almost acts as a canvas to express the autolysis. Whereas the Brut, the fruit, is primary and the autolysis adds complexity. Now the wine just becomes almost a canvas for the autolysis. And now we're going to move on to the Ariel 2000. So this was on the bottle for close to 20 years at this point, you know. So let's see how the autolysis expresses itself now. Okay, we've tasted this wine on camera before. You may or may not have watched that video, but this wine is a wow. I mean, it is glorious. There is an intensity in this wine. Um, I mean, part of it when you age wine for this long, you get some effects of oxidation and oxygen influencing the wine. Even though it's sealed with like a crown cap, like you'd find on a beer bottle, while it's aging, there's always the smallest amount of transfer of oxygen through it. And of course, they're never 100% full, so there's a little bit of oxygen in there to begin with. And after 20 years, that starts to affect the character, even in a small way. So if you can see the color, you see it doesn't look golden, it doesn't look old, it's still lemony and fresh, so it's not oxidized, but it has some influence of oxidative character in it. And that really expresses the fruit and everything in a very different way, a very intense way, actually. Like this is a real noseful. Mm. I love this wine very much. It's almost hard for me to talk about it because I almost get speechless. It's beautiful. There is, this is Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and a little bit of Pinot Meunier, by the way, in the cuvee, and you taste the fruit still after all this time. You can identify um, that it's Pinot Noir based. Maybe it's because I know. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but I think you really can. Um, there is an earthiness, almost like a forest floor kind of character to it, like a little like mushroomy almost. There is a richness and a sweetness to it, and that's not from sugar. That's from the oxidation. That's from the character of the oxidation. It gives you an impression of sweetness, even though it's quite a dry wine. But you still have fresh green apple in it, and the way the and it's interesting that it's almost fruitier than the Blanc de Blanc. But the way at this point in its evolution, the way the yeast and the autolysis present itself is, yes, there's like that sort of brioche baked goods, but it's almost yeasty. It's almost like I know people from Australia eat Marmite on Vegemite on toast. There's almost those characters of real like yeast flavor and character to it in among that rich fruit. And it's glorious. It's really beautiful and it really expresses itself in a different way. I mean, it's kind of like we've really moved in time and see how time influences these wines. Obviously, the base wines are different, so that's going to change it too, but it's a really great way to understand why we age sparkling wines in the bottle on the yeast, how it affects the wines, and it's a great education to taste these wines together. So this New Year's Eve, instead of waiting till midnight to pop one bottle, why not drink sparkling wine all night and have an experience of it? This has been really fun to share this with you guys. I hope you learned something, and I really hope you get a chance to have an experience like this and enjoy these wines. So, Happy New Year, everyone. Merry Christmas. Bye for now.